Alright guys, welcome to this live video. I arrived safely in Romania, so just been doing a bit of work the past couple of days, and the produce is a lot fresher here in Romania than it's been in the ex-Soviet countries. I mean, my heart does go out to these countries. I enjoyed them. It's just one of the drawbacks about these ex-Soviet countries is that Russia is really financially not helping them, and their trade isn't so good. But anyhow, the topic of this video is the location of ancient Atlantis. I'm just going to give you a few hints and pointers as to where it is, 100%. When I visited West Africa, and I spoke to a man now who works for the government, but he was part of one of the original tribes who were converted to Christianity. And his family lineage, the man is from Ghana. His family lineage, he said, was from the Amalekites, and he says that most of the ruling tribes there in Ghana do actually claim lineage from that tribe. So that's not me making it up. That's from someone who stays there for thousands of years and who can trace their lineage back, know biblically where they come from, know biblically who the Queen of Sheba is and what tribe she came from, and so on. But one of the striking things that he showed me was a set of symbols called the Andrinka symbols, which I left a link to, I believe, on one of my last videos, which I'll obviously try and leave another link to these symbols again. Sometimes they're quite difficult to get online because you need to get the right spelling, so I'll get the right spelling and I'll post a link to them. But when you look through those symbols, they're very much like the symbols you would have, for example, for toxic waste, or for nuclear waste, or for electricity, or symbols for like the roads that we have today, some certain symbols. And so there's a list of about 24 original symbols of the Adrinka symbols, which when I looked at them, I mean, they've been added to since then, but when I looked at them, I could see that this was a mark of an advanced civilization straight away. So I knew that ancient Atlantis, hadn't really been identified. It's only been the past year that there's some very good documentaries and videos made about it. Now, I honestly thought my predictions were that it would be located in the Bermuda Triangle. That's my prediction. But when I actually saw a picture from a documentary called The Eye of Africa, or The Eye of the Sahara, and there's videos on that, whenever I saw that, I'm like, that is ancient Atlantis, there's no doubt about it. And there's a YouTube channel called Bright Insight, who's made a trilogy of videos the past few months that have shone tremendous light or evidence in the fact that ancient Atlantis is located in the African country of Mauritius. In the African country of Mauritius, which is in West Africa. Now, the last time I was there, I knew that some of the original universities and schools were built around there. So I knew that thousands of years back, it used to be a very knowledgeable and advanced civilization, like Europe perhaps is today. But there was some cataclysm that happened. I believe it was the flood itself. Many of us, also some people, including Hitler, thought that Atlantis could be the South Pole, and predicted that perhaps that due to the sea levels rising, that Atlantis is under the ocean, which is okay. Many people think that it's under the ocean, and I do believe that there are underwater bases and such. I actually do believe that. I wrote about that when I got born again. I didn't really understand what God was showing me when I wrote Starstruck, but I just wrote it. And yeah, there's definitely underwater bases. Let's just say that. But what you got to realize is that the account from Plato describes a large area, like a metropolis, which is around 30 kilometers in diameter, which has 12 different sections where boats could sail in from the Atlantic, do trading, and they could even trade with Egypt. During that time, there was a canal, or the Suez Canal is one that's identified just now, but during that time, the entire Sahara Desert was a sea. Now, I'm not sure what the name of that sea would have been, but we know that archaeologists have discovered many whales, sharks, sea creatures. Whenever they go there, they just find bones everywhere. And so that's evidence that the Sahara Desert used to be underwater. And that would give it a direct sea link from the Western Sahara to Egypt. And we know that Atlantis could actually trade with Egypt. That was one of the trading links it had. Now, there's several evidences. The fact that it was located near volcanoes as well. And the fact that if a land is located near volcanoes, that it causes the land to rise. And so a lot of people have not considered that Atlantis, in fact, could have risen above what it was before. But there was an ancient cataclysm which actually caused the city to be destroyed and to close off all its sea links. And what could have happened is that several volcanoes could have went off and caused the land to rise, which would have stranded the city or the metropolis from its sea links and sea levels. Now, I'm not exactly certain how the Sahara Desert became a desert. That's something that we have to look at a little bit more. But when you look at Plato's evidences and you do the measurement of the eye of the Sahara with the actual evidence that Plato gives, it matches absolutely exactly, precisely, to within about half a kilometre. And it's got 12 sections in it as well. And it's shaped like an eye. Now, the religion of Atlantis was that they had... it's just basically the same government as described in Revelation. You know, it talks about 7 major heads, 7 chiefs, and then I believe there was 10 kings which were responsible for their areas and regions. It's just exactly, that was the religion of Atlantis, which John the Apostle actually describes in the book of Revelation. And again, it's shaped like an eye. So their God is the all-seeing eye. And so that's another evidence that the eye of the Sahara could well be ancient Atlantis. Hallelujah. So let's have a look at the comments. Okay, someone thinks it's Antarctica. Okay, Copper Harbor in Michigan has Egyptian and Viking petroglyphs. Yeah, that's interesting. It's definitely interesting. They had pure copper. There's only a few places that you get it. So obviously, if it came from West Africa is every precious metal. Still has, it's still referred to as the Gold Coast. You can get every precious metal in West Africa. Just like in Australia, you get the Gold Coast there, you get every kind of precious stone, every kind of precious metal. So that's another area in the world that you can get that. West Africa, South Africa at one time used to be very rich with the precious metals and precious stones, but I think it's been almost mined out. The amount of mines that have been discovered in South Africa going back thousands of years is absolutely incredible. I mean, there's literally tens of thousands of mines. And so, yes, they're still mining gold in South Africa, but not as much as they do in Australia and not as much as they do in West Africa. There's still a lot of people that go out from Canada, independent miners that take their equipment out, and they've got to pay quite a high charge to the governments. I've watched the Chinese just go out and just literally walk in and take what they want with a lot of guns and a lot of bribery. But you know, I've been to West Africa. I know the situation. There's even videos on that if you want to Google that, if you want to check that out. But I also know certain Canadians and Americans that are miners that take equipment to West Africa, and they got to pay a lot of tax money to be able to mine that land. So they've got to literally pay tens of thousands of dollars to be able to start mining. And so it's really got to be worthwhile, after you've mined there for 4 or 5 years, you've got to be making hundreds of thousands of dollars to make it worthwhile. Praise God. Let me just read some more of these comments. We talk about the Red B Hess, Atlantis, and all that time period. I think they traveled the world. I probably, it does say that they traded with the rest of the so-called civilized world, and even Central America at that time. It was believed that they had some trading with the likes of Egypt and Atlantis as well. You're talking about the pre-flood world, which the map itself is completely different than what it is now. I would say probably about 30 or 40% of what we see as Africa today would have been underwater, especially the Sahara Desert. The Sahara Desert is absolutely massive. For those of us that have flown over it, it's about, I think it's roughly 3 or 4 times the size of Europe. It's really massive. It's bigger than the United States of America, the Sahara Desert. I think it's twice as big, I'm not sure, but it's bigger anyway. So there's basically, if anybody wants to do any research, if anybody wants to visit the Eye of the Sahara, there's only one road that goes to it. One way in, one way out. And it's practically in the Sahara Desert. Very difficult to get to. But all the astronauts who've been up into space since the 1960s have been able to locate where the Eye of Africa is. That's one of the things you can see from space, such as the Great Wall of China and whatever else. But that's one of the landmarkers that when you're looking down from space, you can see ancient Atlantis, which they call the Eye of Africa. Which obviously they've not divulged to the rest of the world. It's just the recent year that we've gotten some very good videos about it on YouTube. Just look up Mauritian's top exports gold and copper. Absolutely. Yes, they use as a landmark. It's very interesting as well that the land from space is that copper causes cause a reddish tinge, but copper that's also been wet and submerged with water, it causes a bluish tinge as well. For those of us who have done a bit of plumbing or have fitted pipes, that's what happens to copper when it's very, very wet. It can turn blue, or it can cause the earth to turn very, very red, if there's a lot of it. And so all these are signs, if the earth is changing color, these are signs that there's precious metals within that area. And it's incredible the different colors that ancient Atlantis or the Eye of Africa gives off. There's yellows, reds, blues, and even some greens, I think, which would indicate It would indicate algae, but it would indicate perhaps that there was waters and rivers there, even though there's no life there today. And there was an ancient cataclysm which may have been caused by the flood itself, or it may have been caused by a separate event. That some people think that ancient Atlantis was destroyed long before the flood. You know, that civilization existed long before the flood, and it was destroyed at some point, perhaps 1,000 or 2,000 years even before Noah's flood. So definitely recommend you watch that video from Bright Insight. Made excellent points. I don't really know what else to say, except I believe that a company's put up a reward if anyone travels out there, that they've given certain, I think it's certain number of $1,000 to go out and take pictures of that area. But you would definitely need a really reliable vehicle to get out there. I don't have that. I don't have that class of vehicle that I could just jump, go to Africa and drive out there. But somebody will. Somebody's going to do it within the next year or two. They're going to have the finances to do it, and it'll be very interesting to actually see it close up. The dragon that struck the fish. But what if they saw it from space? It's what the area looks like on Google Earth. Yeah, I know that man who has the fossil school. I forget what his channel's called, and it's a sort of a dragon in the Sahara Desert. And yeah, Mud Fossil University. That's right. Yeah, I saw that one. I mean, really, the whole of Africa looks like at the head of a dragon. You know, it's like the Horn of Africa. If you turn it round, you've got the Horn of Africa, and then you've got Lake Victoria as the eye. So, any of us that have been able to see in the spirit, or some people are able to see demons. You know, if you watch Sid Roth, and they're given spiritual gifts to see into the spirit world. So the way John describes the dragon is very interesting indeed. And I think that was the ancient religion of Atlantis as well. They had the 10 kings, and then the 7 government heads as well. The 7 heads of the dragon, and then the 10 kings, or the 10 crowns. And that's what the city of London is based on, I think. And that's what the government in Switzerland is also based on. So it's obviously like the Masons have really incorporated that knowledge into their religion. It's very interesting, man. I mean, yeah, Mud Fossil University makes enough videos to disclose the fact that the Sahara Desert was once underwater. There's no doubt about that. You know, unless there was hurricanes that lifted up like sea animals and just dropped them on the desert. But it's done in such a way that they're buried, and it's done in such a way that there is evidence of algae, which obviously couldn't exist in an environment which was just desert. So it does show you that it was submerged at one time. And the ancient accounts of these men, such as Plato, talk about interaction with another group of people who were distinct racially as well. Even though sort of Central Africa is a darker skinned race now, going back thousands of years, it tended to be there were lighter skinned people that lived there, because it was a set of islands. It wasn't the way it is just now, like a landmass. It was like Atlantis would have been an island probably the size of probably, what's that island off of Africa again? It'd have been bigger than Britain, let's put it that way, bigger than Japan, or may have been about the size of Japan, which I think is bigger than the UK. So it'd have been slightly bigger than that. But yeah, the evidence is there. I mean, these oceans have remained the same name for thousands of years. You know, the North Pacific, South Pacific, Atlantic, Atlantis. You know, all these evidences point to the location. And I definitely strongly recommend that you have a look at these Andrinka symbols, which I'll leave a link for. So I'll just check the comments out, and yeah, huge. I mean, it just seems to be exactly what I saw in a vision one time. If you turn Africa around on its side, like I've seen a vision of a spirit like that. So I'm quite amazed when I saw that, when I went into that place, and it just struck me straight away, and I hadn't really seen it before. And I was thinking about going to do a project in East Africa. It was like the region I was thinking about going to, but I believe God was sort of stopping me from going there. I don't think it's God's will anymore for me to go there. So I'm just praying about what God's will is at the moment, and getting a few paintings finished. So praise God. Thanks for your company, guys. Jesus bless you.